Welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show. If you are tired of chasing buy-in, frustrated with teams who can't seem to get on the same page, or over the constant struggle of holding people accountable without micromanaging, this is the show for you. I'm Casey Watts, speaker, author, and the creator of the Clarity Cycle Framework. I help leaders just like you take teams from frustration to alignment so teams can work collectively toward a common purpose in a committed way instead of against each other as though they are functioning in different organizations. And we do it all through the craft of clarity. Whether you lead from the middle or you are the front-facing leader of your organization, on this show, we bring clarity to the seemingly small things in leadership that make the biggest difference, because clarity precedes capacity. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's episode. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I am joined with Stephanie McConnell today, and I'm pumped about our topic. Here's what we're bringing clarity to. Here's the idea. Better student outcomes, stronger school cultures. I'm going to say it again. Better student outcomes, stronger school cultures. So we're going to dive into a conversation all about this. Here's the question before we get started that I want you guys, listeners, to be pondering. Is your school's improvement plan a binder on a shelf or a living system that drives results? Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind as you prepare to listen to this conversation. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's so nice being here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, and Stephanie, let's start by having you share a little bit about who you are and the work that you do.
Okay, so I am a former principal, former superintendent and assistant superintendent, just retired in June, the end of June. So July 1 was my first retirement time. So I'm really new at this working from home thing full time, but it is certainly enjoyable. So what I get to do now is work with schools, and our focus is just mainly around improving student outcomes. And the big part of my work is focused on win time and setting up systems that, help build better schools and stronger student outcomes. And so with that, I have written a couple books over win time. I have helped develop the win time software that is out there. And just at the end of the day, my goal is to have our schools stop being data rich and action poor to being data rich and just action strong, and acting upon what that data says. And the other side of my life, I'm also a publisher. So I've published several books, including my own. And I think that's kind of how we came to be friends.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I remember when I first purchased Win Time, it was, I don't even remember when you first published it, but I remember 2019. Okay, so that's about right. So I think I purchased it probably in 2021, maybe 2022. Okay. And I had purchased it. I was a district instructional specialist, and I was supporting principals and teachers. And I had gotten really close with one principal who ended up taking over the principal position like in October of that school year. So she was like, whoa, this is a little bit crazy. And anyway, one of the things that we talked about was how are we going to support what they call Power Up. At the time, it was called Power Up, and it was just like their small group intervention time. And she said, I really want to implement Win Time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just purchased that book. And so we pulled out the books together, and she said, have you followed this lady on Facebook in the Principal Principles group? And anyway, so it just kind of started there. You weren't publishing books at the time, I don't think.
No, no.
Just your own.
Just my own. And then after that came helping other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then over time. So guys, it's just kind of like a crazy moment where you go from noticing a person and the content that they provide and the spaces that they provide for people to collaborate to actually then at some point becoming an author yourself, which was the case for me. So you published my book, and it was like this crazy circle that I never imagined I would be a part of. So this is really, really cool. And now you're a guest on the podcast. So
I love
about
it.
that.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So people know that we are like real people who live real lives. What's something just ordinary, average Joe about you?
Well, I'm kind of afraid to say because I'm afraid that people are going to look at me different. So I love crime junkie stuff. Like I love anything that's FBI, CSI. When I'm listening to podcasts as well, I'm sure there's going to be a crime one in there in the playlist. It's just that's what I love. Like it can hold my attention. And so my husband will come in and he'll see me watching something because that's totally not his genre. And he'll look at it and he goes, "Oh my gosh, not this again." I think he's getting kind of worried about how much I watch it.
Yeah, that's so funny. I just started listening to crime podcasts. Now, it's hard for me to find the right one, so you're going to have to give some suggestions to me.
Crime Junkie.
Yeah. Okay, Crime Junkie is one of like the podcasts that you listen to?
Yeah.
Okay, because they're really great to listen to when traveling. That's what I have found.
Yes.
Because it can sustain my attention for a good bit of time. So I listen to, this is totally an aside, guys, and has nothing to do with this episode, but if you're a crime junkie, you're going to want to know this. But I listened to one of the first ones that came across my path was Scamanda. Did you ever listen? Okay, Scamanda. I think it ended up turning into a Netflix series as well. So look it up. It's Scamanda, like scam, but with the name Amanda, Scamanda. So that's one to look up, guys. It's really good. It's kind of shocking. Okay, so I told our listeners that the question you needed to be thinking about was, is your school's improvement plan a binder on a shelf or a living system that drives results? And one of the things that you mentioned in the very beginning when you were talking about how you support schools is we tend to be data rich but action poor. So can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all known for that. It's like I know that was firsthand when I became a principal in the district that I was just left, and there was so much data there, and they had all the right things. They had the right people in place. They collected the data, but weren't taking action on that. And what comes from that is that we're going to stay exactly where we are, or we're going to drop. And that's exactly what happened. Is like we had all the right intentions and everything, but weren't acting upon that data. And that is very detrimental to a school to sit with all of that mounds of paperwork and reports and stuff and not do something with it. It's like you can go through and collect and assess students, but if you're not going to do anything with it, why are we doing it? Why are we putting ourselves through it? Just to see the score? Well, okay, you got the score, but what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it can be really defeating for teachers, especially who are doing the work of collecting all of this data, and then when nothing is done with it, it can feel like this was just a huge time suck.
Yep.
And even if we're meeting about the data, but nothing comes of it, it feels like, well, it was just another pointless meeting that we were required to go through, again, taking up time that I could have been doing something else. So I'm wondering.
One more thing, you could have that data, and one of the things that I've noticed schools are doing is that they'll group students by a score instead of the actual skills that they're deficient in. So if I made an 80 and you made an 80 on your test, that doesn't mean anything. What about the other things that we're missing may be different. And so we may need to be in a different group. Or if I made a 50 and you made a 50, that 50 looks different from what I need and you need. So we get called up into that score and placing students in groups based on that instead of placing them based off of skills that they're deficient in. That's a better way to use that data, but it means that you've got to dig deeper into past that number,
Mm-hmm. What is the connection you feel between that and school improvement plans?
Um, so I think school improvement plans have become a compliance and not really an actionable tool. And hopefully one day that will change, but with the right conversations that are happening and the right people in place, that it doesn't just become papers and that you meet on at the beginning of the year, the middle, and the end of the year, but they're really doing something with that work and actually looking at it. And so that is the last few years I was in this district. It's like I really dug into the needs of the school and doing a comprehensive needs assessment and determining exactly what needs to be in there. And then the biggest part is now aligning our actions to what we're going to say we're going to do. That we're not just putting it down on paper, but we're actually doing the work.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about was like your campus improvement plans can just become a requirement. You check it off, it becomes this dusty thing on the shelf. Do you
Yeah.
think also that the data that teachers collect, like classroom student data, that it can be the same where we're collecting, but then it just gathers dust on the shelf?
Yeah, I think so. I think it has a tendency, but the thing is, teachers are um, more prone, I think, to pulling their data and using it. And that is surprising. It's like they want it. They want us as leaders to do the work with them. And they're doing it without us, but we could at least be involved in it. And
Mhm.
that's what's the most critical piece of that is that I have teachers that are willing and able and already doing the work. They're waiting on a leader to lead them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you said that because you're so right. If I look back on my time working with teachers or even the teachers that come into the meetings, like usually I'm working with instructional leadership teams, but a lot of the time those instructional leadership teams will include some key teachers, like some lead teachers or whoever, but usually there are some classroom teachers. They tend to be really engaged in the data. And that some of them have gone above and beyond with their own spreadsheets and their own way of looking at the data,
Yeah.
but sometimes they're the only one among their team who's doing it. And I think it a lot of the time this is a high achieving person. They naturally want to do this. They've dug into the work themselves about how to go about doing this, but not everyone knows exactly how to do that. I'm curious to know why you think leaders, I don't think they don't do this because they don't want to. I think they want to, but they don't for some reason. What's holding leaders back from doing this work with teachers?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think everybody wants to. I think everybody in the school system naturally wants our students to do well. It has become so hard to lead schools with all the compliance things, and also the discipline has changed, the parents have changed, the curriculum changes, all the things that are changing. And so it's all about having the right things on your plate. I feel like sometimes they get so much that they're not getting to what is necessary. It's the
Hmm.
most essential pieces. And that's the work that I absolutely love to work with principals with, is to identify those essential things that bring the heaviest leverage there so you can have the best student outcomes possible. And that's just so empowering. It's like to walk into school and have those conversations with principals and say, let's see what we could take off your plate or shift, or the way about you're doing it, that you might be spending too much time on something that's not bringing enough weight to you and giving you the success that you need. And
Yeah.
most of the time is they're too focused on something that's just not doing it.
Yeah. Do you find that there is something a lot of principals end up while they're working with you? Are there patterns in what they end up prioritizing?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've narrowed it down a lot to that, but I think just from my own, years of being a principal, I think it's just managing a school is where they find themselves probably 80% of the time. And when it should be shifted in, managing a school, once you get it going and you have your systems in place and student discipline, everything should be rocking and rolling. It doesn't mean that you're going to have unnormal days, but for the most part, your school should function very well from the minute the bell rings to it ends. But it's not always the case. So I hate to speculate or what,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of principals spend their time on just managing the school instead of the actual work of improving student outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's really easy to get caught up in those managerial things
Yeah.
that take up time, and they can seem really important in the
Mhm.
moment, but we know, and even when we know that this is not what's going to move the needle on student learning, we get bogged down by it. I think sometimes maybe we could talk about this, but I wonder, maybe it's a wondering and not an I think. I wonder if sometimes we easily get bogged down by those managerial things because they're a little bit easier to manage than doing the harder work of,
Yeah.
like leading people in data informed instruction and
Yeah.
focusing on student outcomes. Like that, I could see that as being one of those things that requires a lot of confidence and a lot of planning. And if you lack confidence in that, then sometimes I'm probably just going to focus on the things that I'm a little bit more confident in.
And the other piece to that, because you said confidence in planning, the planning part is sometimes their weakness as well. It's like, I don't know where to begin. Like you give me this information, what do I do with it? Like,
Mhm.
how do I present it back to the teachers? How do I break it down? What does that actually mean now? I think that's a critical piece too. And you've got to be that kind of leader that can do both of those things.
Mhm. So you have developed win time, and I want to be sure that our listeners know exactly what you mean by that. And I also know that we could use this time to clarify that because there's a lot of information out there, a lot of things labeled win time, just like anything else, like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something like a Stanley mug, like
Yeah.
this is not a Stanley mug. It could come across as that, and people are going to be like, oh, is that a Stanley? I could be like, yeah, it's a Stanley. It is not. So talk a little bit about Win Time.
Okay, so here's the book. It is on Amazon. There's another book too, and it's pink, and it says Win Time as well. That is the second book. So the first book is where you'd start if you don't know anything about Win Time. So Win Time stands for What I Need. That's the WIN part. And it is all about giving students exactly what they need. So it is a period of the day that's built into your master's schedule that gives students intervention or enrichment for reading and math. And so this all came about years ago, and it wasn't even called Win Time when we first started. We called it Flex because we were being flexible with our schedule. So we thought maybe that's the better name, but it wasn't actually until 2017 that I changed it to Win Time, and then the book came out in 2019. But we were. I thought my dog was coming in. Sorry. So it's all about looking at your students, putting them into groups, and looking at their data and all of that. So and it really moves the needle. I found out years ago, I realized that I was part of the problem. So I made a intervention time during the day. I had the interventionist, and they would come to the room and they would knock on the classroom teacher's door, and they'd pull that student out of the classroom and go get services. That very method that I was doing was actually doing more harm to that student because they were missing tier 1 instruction. And they were also being embarrassed to be pulled out of the classroom. And so I said, I got to break this. There's got to be a better way. And so I figured out, like, let me put it in the master schedule. And all students go out of the room or stay in the room with a teacher. And it's nobody knows. Nobody knows any different. There's no embarrassment. Everybody's getting either intervention or enrichment. It's just the perfect blend of it all. So that's how it all worked. It didn't start out great. It started out messy like everything else did, but with clarity, things changed, right? So that's kind of how Win Time was first developed and how it came to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to caution everyone, be careful. Sometimes I get into the debate with myself around, like, does the title or does the name matter for things? But words have power. And
Yeah.
I love that you guys kind of shifted the name to Win Time and really thinking about what does every student need, every single student. And the caution that I want to project out there is that we have to be careful that we're not taking Win Time and just labeling any intervention time in our schedule as Win Time.
Yeah.
I encourage you, if you're not quite sure about what exactly Win Time is
Yeah.
read the book, get more information about it, and be careful about what you call things. I know, and it's just if you don't have specific systems in place, and I want you to talk more about systems here in a little bit because you've already mentioned it some, but I know Win Time gives some specific systems. If you don't have specific systems in place and it's not clear amongst your people what those systems are and why they exist, then chances are what I need becomes sometimes some kids get what they need, but other students are just kind of fending for themselves,
Yeah.
or teachers taking care of things that are just their overwhelming list of to-dos.
Yeah.
So talk about why systems are so important.
For exactly that reason. So when we first started Win Time Flex back then, we knew the why. We knew we could knock on that door, pull students out, miss tier one, and the student would leave the classroom, go get that intervention, and come back in lost because that lesson continued. And so it frustrated the teacher too, because the teacher now had to catch this student up. When was that student going to get caught up? Well, they'd have to give up their recess or their PE or some of their free time to get that lesson caught back up. So it was a vicious cycle. But we knew our why because we needed to stop that. But what we didn't have developed out was our what. Like, what does that look like? How are students, and the how, like, how are students pulled out? Where do they go? What services are they going to get? What are the teachers doing? What are the students doing? All of those things. Until we developed that and had clarity on those things, we were just making it a big mess. But once we developed that system of what Win Time looks like and what it's not, because I had parameters on what this is not. This is not a time for doing busy work. This is not a time for teachers to grade papers. This is not a time to sit and read quietly or to be on your devices or anything like that. Like, I had to say, this is not what it is. And then we started seeing such results. And our data is in here in this book. In 2017, I came to Hawkins ISD, and they were in the elementary school was an F. 2019, we're a National Blue Ribbon school. I'm not saying Win Time did that, because we had the right people. We had the right tools. Our district paid for us to have everything we ever needed, but we needed the system in place to close those gaps. And I know Win Time was a big help on boosting those scores.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I got chills when you just said all of that. TED Talk right there. Okay, did you experience resistance in the beginning?
I think I was too, like, I had been a principal for 9 years, I think. And so you get to that point where you're like, if there was resistance, I wasn't going to let it shake me. But they also knew they were F. They didn't have another choice. Either, get it together. TA was going to tell you what you were going to do. So they were going to listen. And they were willing to listen. That's the greatest thing about where I ended up, is that they wanted it. Like they wanted some help with it. But I was very strategic in all of this, because I made sure that every question. So I began the meeting with, I'm going to share a presentation with you, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to tell you all about win time, every little detail I've thought about. So if you have a question, I want you to write it down, because I think I probably have thought about what questions you're going to ask, and it's probably going to be in here. So let's hold the questions to the end. And that's exactly what happened. But you know what? We started on day 2 of school, and it was a little messy. So what we did is every day after school, we did a hallway huddle and say, let's re-talk about what this looks like. Let's see how we can get our students to the intervention rooms and get them back a little easier, because that was the thing, is that we had 2 intervention times, one for reading and math, because if a student is low in both, then they need both services. They need both reading and math. And so it's like, how do you get a kindergarten student from one teacher that they don't know to another teacher that they don't know yet either? And so we had to work those things out, and where to meet in halls and pick the students back up. And so that, transition time wasn't eating into your win time.
Yeah, that's great. There are a couple of things you mentioned I want to talk about. The first one, because I'm now drawing a blank on, that's the problem. I want to write, but I can't write and listen at the same time. And so my notes end up being like so random. And then I'm like, I have no idea what I was trying to come back to. But I do. Oh, yes, here's what it was. And this is important to talk about. It is November when we're recording this episode. It's not the beginning of the school year. Can people still try to implement this?
Yes. It looks, like you got to all get together, though. Like, what I do is I come in with the principal and I ask the teacher, I want you to find us before we get started. I want you to find a teacher from every grade level, or that has influence, a positive influence on the campus, because I call these the HIT team, because they're the high impact team. And they become the people that help develop this specific to their school. Because I know you just came from a much larger district than I did. And it looks different at a larger school than a smaller school. And before I was in this district, I was at a larger school. So it does look different. Your staffing looks different. Your students look different. Everything looks different. All the resources and the money that you may have or may not have. So that team is so valuable to help and develop what win time is going to look like. Once that's developed, that high impact team presents it back to the staff and the district, in that campus, because they're the ones that they're going to go to when I'm not there. And so that's such a critical piece. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, just to clarify, so anyone could implement this when they are ready to implement it. However, it takes some planning and intentional people. So you're looking for your high impact people that have influence and are I'm not even going to say they may not even be your high achievers. So be really careful about that.
Yeah.
It could
There's
be
people who have influence. And let me tell you, even a teacher that is your negative Nancy in the district, you want them on your team to help you change the perspective of it. I know you can start this at any time of the year, but if you just go in there and say, hey, we're going to do win time, and you don't have all of these conversations ahead of time, already thought out, presented back, and that's what we do. We build a slide deck with every question we know they're going to ask. What does it look like? What are our students like? What resources are we going to use? How often are we going to switch our groups? All of that happens. And if you don't do that, it is going to continue to be messy, and it's going to give your, just a bad rap. It's not going to work until that is done.
Yeah. Are there sometimes teams, like high impact teams that you're talking about, hit teams, sometimes they can be too big or too small? What do you feel like is a good number of people to lead this work?
I always ask for 5 to 7, just depending on your campus size. If your campus is very small, you probably don't need that many. But if you have an average school, 6 teachers per campus, per grade level, then I would say 5 to 7, and plus your admin are on there. And I would pick people from different areas. Put an interventionist on there, put your special ed teacher, your dyslexia teacher, a reading teacher, a math teacher. So there's a variety of people that can bring input. Too large of a group, there's too many opinions and inputs and things like that. So
yeah. The other thing that I wanted to ask was, are there hiccups or roadblocks that you've found that are common that people run into when they're trying to get this started?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just not, you can communicate, but maybe you're not saying what you need to say, and you're not being very specific enough or focused on the right things to say. And so it's very important that you just stay focused on the why, the how, what does it look like, things like that. And what is it, what's not. And then also make sure you're in the rooms as a school leader, not to inspect and to evaluate, but to understand how it's working and what's not working. So you can go back and say, okay, we really need to fix this, because we're spending too much time transitioning that we're not getting enough time in the actual classroom, or whatever it may be. Or we're spending too much time assessing that we're not actually teaching,
Yeah. That brings me to the other thing that I was going to talk about way earlier. You mentioned hallway huddle, and I love, love, love that idea, because I think it takes away, we could easily say, okay, we need to have a faculty meeting on this. But oh my gosh, if we have to have another faculty meeting, kill me now. But just labeling, we're just going to quickly meet hallway huddle.
Yeah.
It insinuates in the name itself. This is why words have power, people. But hallway huddle, we're just got to huddle in a hallway for a little bit and talk about this one thing.
So and it takes that long to say, this is what I saw today. How can we fix it? And we're all standing in a circle in the big part of the hallway that we can all get in. And at the end, we put our hands in and, clap it out. And then we're headed to the house,
Yes.
It's that fast. And they know what it looks like, that they know that I'm watching. They know that I'm there to help. So that's just so important. It's just that communication.
Yeah. And to start to wrap this up, I want to bring back this idea, and you guys have probably heard it again and again throughout this episode, but this work is not to be done by an individual leader. This work is to be done collaboratively with a team of people.
Yeah.
So get your team of people together to do this, and to do this planning with you. You do not have to go at it alone.
Yeah.
And with that said, you don't have to go at it alone, just kind of blindly, because you've got Stephanie here. You've got the book that can guide you. So tell our listeners a little bit about how they can connect with you.
Well, I'm on social media as Principal Principles, and you can reach out there. My email is principalprinciples@gmail.com. Very easy. I'm on every social media platform there is. So I'm sure you can find me if you look hard enough, and I will be happy to help you. I walk people through this. We have conversations. If it's what they need, I come to them. If it's something I can just answer over a Zoom call, we'll do that. So many things, but yes, you have to have a team. Don't try to do this yourself. It will not be sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, or something you hope they walk away with?
Yeah, so today, I don't know, it was just, I don't know why this touched me, but I'm reading a book that there's a quote in there, and it says, "The most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire."
Oh
Isn't
my
that
gosh.
amazing?
So good.
And I'm just thinking, guys, if you want to make a change in your school, you got to set your soul on fire. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yes. Yeah. Can you read that quote one more time?
Yes, the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire.
I'm going to include that in the show notes.
Okay.
So if anybody, and what does that come from?
This book right here is called On Fire. I went to see the movie. I haven't been to the movies in forever, and I saw this on the movie. And this quote right at the beginning of it. Of course, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the guy who wrote it, he was playing with matches and gasoline, and he burned himself. And so that's one of the quotes at the very beginning. And it changed his life. It changed his life completely. And
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. Okay. So you guys got some additional things. You're going to notice all of that in the show notes, including, I'll try to remember to include the link to that book, but also links to connect with Stephanie. Stephanie, thank you for coming on. This has been great. I mean, obviously, I didn't doubt that it was going to be great, right?
I hope not. Well,
okay, guys. Yes, absolutely. And guys, we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, everybody. Hey, listener, I am so honored that you listened to today's episode, and I hope you gained something valuable from it. I'd also be honored if you did me 3 solid favors. First, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Second, be sure you're following me on social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with Casey on LinkedIn or Instagram. And finally, if you are looking to book a dynamic and relatable speaker for your next event, conference, or retreat, I would love to bring a message about how the craft of clarity makes a significant impact on both leadership and life. Until next time, always remember, clarity precedes capacity.